Story 1. Hey everyone. I'm posting this from a throwaway account because I prefer to keep my main account free from this kind of stuff. So here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old guy who about a year ago decided to take a leap and start my own business. I didn't do it alone, though. I had a little help from a few friends from college. It's been quite a journey, but I'm happy to report that we've been doing really well. In fact, we're actually making a profit now, which feels amazing. But here's where things get interesting. A couple of days ago, I heard from my parents. We're talking about the same parents who haven't really been in touch with me since I graduated from college. They're both 52, and to put it mildly, our relationship has been pretty strained. Out of the blue, they reached out to me with a proposal. They want to know if I'd be open to the idea of them joining my business as partners. Apparently, they're interested in investing in what I've built. It's a lot to process, especially considering our rocky history. I decided against it. I didn't even bring it up with my friends because they all know about the difficult relationship I have with my parents. The thought of involving them in my business just didn't sit right with me at all. Throughout my childhood and growing up, my parents weren't exactly supportive. Instead, they often neglected me and made fun of me, which always struck me as odd. I was the kind of kid that many parents would usually be proud of. Both of my parents are quite successful in their careers. My dad is an airline pilot, and my mom is an anesthesiologist. You could say I was raised in a household that valued high achievement, and naturally I grew up to be very ambitious from a young age. Despite this, for reasons I've never fully understood, my parents never really showed any support for my endeavors. Instead, they would mock me for being what they considered too nerdy. This background is precisely why I felt it wasn't a good idea to mix my family dynamics with my business operations. My venture is something I've built with positivity and hard work alongside friends who believe in me and what we're doing. Introducing my parents into this equation, considering our past, didn't seem like a move that would benefit anyone involved. My parents were well off financially, yet they hardly contributed to even my basic needs, acting out of what seemed like pure spite. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why they harbored such intense dislike towards me. It wasn't until a heart-to-heart with my aunt, my dad's younger sister who's now 46, that I began to see the bigger picture. She was the one person who really got where I was coming from. When I was 16, she opened up about the real reason behind my parents' seemingly irrational behavior and disdain towards me. She believed I was mature enough to handle the truth. They blamed me for not achieving the level of success they had aspired to. Despite their considerable success, they never reached the fame they had hoped for, and astonishingly, they saw me as the reason. My aunt revealed that my parents felt the time, money, and effort spent on raising me was a missed opportunity. They believed that if they had directed those resources towards their careers instead, they would have been more successful in their fields. Their decision to have me was not born out of a genuine desire for parenthood, but rather due to familial pressure. They didn't actually want a child, but once they had me, they felt trapped and resorted to bullying and constantly belittling me as their way of coping. As a result, my childhood was marked by deprivation. Sure, the bills were paid, and the basic necessities were covered, but I lacked any form of emotional support or encouragement from them. This neglect and their treatment of me as an unwanted obligation rather than a cherished family member left deep scars that influenced our relationship profoundly. My parents were never there for me, not for small things like homework or school projects, and certainly not for the big stuff like conflicts at school. If I ever expressed a desire for something that wasn't strictly necessary, they would dismiss me outright or, even worse, ridicule me. They often made fun of my appearance, which wasn't difficult for them since I was rather skinny and had a geeky look. They also didn't miss an opportunity to belittle my passion for computers, predicting my future as just another IT guy, implying that investing in my interests and aspirations was a pointless endeavor. This emotional neglect was compounded by constant insults, which sadly, I grew accustomed to during my upbringing. At the time, it somehow became my twisted norm. I internalized their disdain to mean there was something inherently wrong with me, which explained their lack of affection compared to how other parents treated their children. Looking back, it's clear how messed up the whole situation was. As I navigated my teenage years, I began to push back against their treatment, only to be met with harsh threats from my dad, who claimed he would throw me out on the streets if I didn't fall in line. In search of some solace, I turned to my aunt, the one family member who seemed to understand and care. She repeatedly offered to intervene on my behalf, even suggesting reporting them, but I always declined. The fear of the unknown coupled with not wanting to impose on her or anyone else kept me from accepting her help. I felt it was better to endure the situation at home, finding brief moments of relief in conversations with my aunt. Upon learning the root cause of my parents' behavior from my aunt, I made a silent vow to myself to cut ties with them completely. The realization that they blamed me for their unfulfilled ambitions was the final straw, cementing my decision to remove myself from their lives and start anew, free from their toxic influence. After finishing high school, my journey took a turn that was less about what I wanted and more about what my parents refused to provide. Despite their financial capabilities, they chose to send me to public school. I don't mean to come across as arrogant, but looking back, I feel like that decision didn't fully utilize my capabilities. This should have been a clear indication of their indifference towards my education and, frankly, towards me as a whole. Yet, I held on to some hope that they would support me when it mattered most. That hope was shattered when they coldly informed me that once high school was over and I turned 18, I would no longer have a place in their home unless I made something of myself. To add insult to injury, they also declared they wouldn't be contributing to my college tuition. This was the moment I reached my breaking point, confronting them with the belief in my bright future backed by a history of academic excellence. Their response was both shocking and hurtful. They dismissed my potential and achievements, telling me not to overestimate my future prospects, even going as far as to mockingly suggest that my peak would be a lowly IT guy fixing computers, as if that was a position unworthy of respect. Their narrow-minded view failed to recognize that IT professionals possess a wealth of knowledge and skill deserving of just as much respect as any other profession. However, trying to change their minds or argue for their financial support for college was futile. Facing their unwavering stance, I made the difficult decision to leave home a few weeks shy of my 18th birthday, seeking refuge with my aunt. It was there I began the arduous process of applying for colleges, aiming for scholarships to secure my education without their help. Despite continued attempts to convince my parents otherwise, they remained obstinate. Ultimately, the plan became to attend whichever college offered the most significant reduction in tuition, ensuring my future was still within my grasp despite the lack of parental support. Fortuitously, I secured admission into a college that offered me an 80% scholarship, which also boasted a respectable computer science program. This was a development that left me quite content, and my aunt, who works in sales and earns a modest income, generously offered to cover the remaining tuition costs. Her financial situation might not have been as robust as my parents', placing her firmly in the middle class, yet her willingness to support me made all the difference, especially since the scholarship significantly reduced my tuition fees. My time in college was structured around minimizing my return home. I preferred staying in my dorm, partly because my aunt's job required her to travel frequently. This arrangement suited me perfectly. As I embarked on my college journey, moving out of my parents' home marked the beginning of a significant improvement in my well-being. Freed from the constant anxiety and worry, I found myself happier and more open, which led to forming friendships that were once challenging for me to cultivate. It was through these new connections that I met the individuals who would later become not only my closest friends but also my business partners. Together, we established our own IT firm, which, to our delight, has been performing quite well. Initially, I assumed my parents would remain indifferent to my achievements, given their historical lack of interest. However, upon learning of my impending graduation and the honor of being named valedictorian, they expressed a desire to attend the ceremony. Their intentions were thwarted as I had neither provided them with tickets nor extended an invitation, given our estranged relationship. After the ceremony, I was taken aback to find them waiting with my aunt, who appeared as displeased as I was, likely having endured their company post-graduation. What was supposed to be a celebration with my friends turned into 2 hours of contentious debate in my parents' hotel room. They expressed their frustration at being excluded from the graduation, contrasting their absence with my aunt's presence. Their complaints were ironic considering their decision to effectively disown me at 18, refusing to contribute to my college expenses despite their ability to do so. This confrontation brought to the forefront the years of neglect, emotional turmoil, and mistreatment they had inflicted upon me throughout my life, casting a shadow over what should have been a day of pure celebration. I felt they didn't warrant an explanation for my actions, but to avoid a scene outside my college, I begrudgingly led them to their hotel, where I eventually reached my boiling point. I made it clear to them that I wished to sever all ties, warning that any further attempts at contact would prompt me to seek a restraining order. Then I left to join my friends, determined not to let my parents' presence overshadow my achievements. Following the confrontation, I cut off communication with them. My aunt later informed me that they were both upset and considering writing me out of their will, a threat that held no weight for me as I had no expectations of inheritance from them. That marked the end of our interactions. Fast forward nearly 7 years, and out of nowhere, they reached out again, having obtained my number from my aunt under the pretense of wanting to apologize. A heads up she meant to give me but forgot due to her busy schedule, which I understood. However, their call lacked the apology I was led to expect. Instead, they dove straight into a business proposition. They now saw value in associating with me, a stark contrast to their previous stance. Without hesitation, I declined their offer and proceeded to block their number, a decision I shared with my friends, who fully supported me, knowing well the strain my parents had put on our family dynamics. What I didn't anticipate was their retaliatory move. The next day, a bitter Facebook post tagging me and my friends in it, they attempted to discredit my success, painting me not as the self-made individual I am but falsely claiming my achievements were the result of daddy's money. This public attempt to undermine my credibility and the legitimacy of my business was a new low, yet it only solidified my resolve to keep them out of my life for good. The Facebook post my parents made claiming I was ungrateful for their supposed years of support left me utterly shocked. I nearly reached out to confront them directly but chose a different route instead. For years, I had archived videos from my teenage days, a period when I meticulously recorded my daily life to potentially illustrate their inadequate parenting in a legal setting if it ever came to that. These recordings showcased their dismissive and mocking behavior towards me, treating me as if I were the biggest burden on their life. I had refrained from sharing these videos publicly, wishing to distance myself from any drama associated with them. However, their recent attempt to undermine me on social media prompted a change of heart. I decided to retaliate by sharing these videos, potentially crossing into controversial territory. Using my public Instagram account, I detailed my tumultuous history with my parents in lengthy captions and posted the videos to highlight their true colors. Following this, I informed my lawyer about the situation, who, unbeknownst to me, had already begun preparing a defamation lawsuit against my parents for their slanderous accusations. Next on my list was to consult with my business partners, as their reputations were implicated in the Facebook smear as well. The situation escalated quickly, with some of my relatives and my parents' acquaintances commenting on the post, applauding my so-called exposure and expressing their reluctance to ever collaborate with our business. This move of mine to publicly call out my parents might be seen by some as an overstep, but it was a response to their public disparagement and a step towards defending my integrity and that of my company. Given the situation, we certainly had a solid basis for legal action. I took the precaution of forwarding the incriminating screenshots to my attorney for safekeeping and made sure to inform my business partners about the unfolding events to ensure they were fully aware of the situation. The call. After setting these wheels in motion, I anticipated a call from my parents, perhaps even hoping for an apology. Surprisingly, they did reach out, but not with the remorse I expected. Instead, they used my aunt's phone to demand an apology from me, critiquing my decision to share those videos on a platform where they could be seen by a broader audience. Given my substantial follower count, they argued that their Facebook rant was limited to their personal circles, whereas my Instagram post exposed them to a much wider audience, leading to a barrage of negative reactions, including hateful messages and even threats. They feared the repercussions could extend to their professional lives, especially if their employers stumbled upon the content showcasing them in a negative light. In response, I stood my ground, asserting that they had brought this upon themselves. Before ending the call, nevertheless, I decided to archive the posts and took a brief hiatus from my phone. Upon returning, I found an email from my parents. It contained a semblance of an apology for past grievances but quickly shifted tone to criticize my actions. They labeled my response as egregious, highlighting the legal implications of sharing personal videos without their consent, which, according to them, opened the door for potential legal action against me as well. This development added another layer to our already complicated relationship, indicating that while they recognized some fault for the past, they were also prepared to contest the manner in which I chose to defend myself. It seems that my parents were hit with the defamation lawsuit, which led them to warn me about retracting it, hinting at exposing my supposed unethical behavior to negatively influence my business. After discussing this with my business partners, the consensus is clear. There's no justifiable reason for us to withdraw the lawsuit. They firmly believe we've acted appropriately in stark contrast to my parents, who have resorted to falsehoods and manipulation to tarnish my reputation. The decision, despite their attempts to discredit me, I'm wrestling with feelings of guilt over proceeding with the lawsuit, especially after receiving their apology via email. I understand that pursuing legal action will likely cast a shadow over all involved due to the negative attention it garners. However, after much contemplation and discussion, particularly considering my business partners and the potential impact on our firm, I've decided to move forward with the lawsuit. This decision wasn't made in isolation. It considers the wider implications on my business and the well-being of my partners. Despite the relatively limited reach of my parents' original post, its intent was clear: to harm my reputation and, by extension, my business. The decision to sue for defamation feels justified given their efforts to malign my character and jeopardize my professional achievements for their own satisfaction. Furthermore, the sincerity of their apology is questionable at best, seeming more like a strategic move to protect their own interests rather than a genuine expression of remorse. Their readiness to apologize only when faced with potential repercussions for their careers suggests their intentions weren't truly apologetic but rather self-serving. Thus, proceeding with the lawsuit appears to be the most appropriate course of action under the circumstances. For much of my life, I've held back from confronting my parents, largely out of fear. Approaching my 30s, I still find myself intimidated by the prospect of standing up to them, a testament to the deeply ingrained fear that has shaped my interactions with them. This realization didn't hit me until many of you in the comments highlighted the numerous occasions I missed to reveal the truth about my parents' behavior. This avoidance wasn't a conscious choice but a response driven by fear of the potential fallout. However, I've come to understand that they no longer have power over me. I'm in control now. Their ability to affect my life is limited, which emboldens me to pursue legal action against them, regardless of their lukewarm apology. I'm committed to ensuring they face consequences for their actions. The time for me to play the benevolent part is over, especially when it concerns individuals who have shown nothing but cruelty. The environment I was raised in was far from what any child should experience, and now that I'm in a position to seek justice, I intend to seize that opportunity. No longer will I maintain the higher ground just for the sake of it, not when they continue to target me in their quest for attention. Their behavior is reprehensible, and I refuse to tolerate it any longer. In a recent update, my aunt reached out to inquire about my decision regarding my parents. I informed her that we are indeed moving forward with the lawsuit, marking a definitive step in addressing the wrongs of my past and holding them accountable for their actions. My aunt expressed her satisfaction with my decision to proceed with the lawsuit and shared her pride in me, which meant a lot. She also offered an apology for not being more involved during my childhood. However, I hold no resentment towards her. I understand that during those times, she was navigating her own challenges, trying to establish her career, which made it difficult for her to provide the support I needed. Yet, when it truly mattered, she stepped in and made a significant difference in my life, for which I am deeply thankful. My family, particularly my grandparents, were utterly devoted to my parents, making it unlikely they would ever accept the truth about how I was treated. Had my aunt attempted to intervene through official channels like CPS, the outcomes could have been unpredictable, possibly landing me in foster care or a similar situation. I recognize she's not flawless, but I feel compelled to defend her against criticism, considering she was the sole family member who stood by me, offering whatever support she could. The value of her actions, right or wrong in the eyes of others, was immeasurable to me. Since the email exchange with my parents, there has been silence on their end, likely as they await my decision regarding the lawsuit. It's been 4 days, and we're moving towards mediation with a court-appointed mediator in hopes of reaching an out-of-court settlement before considering taking the matter to trial. The aim is not to exploit my parents' financial resources. They indeed have plenty, but to hold them accountable for their actions. The turmoil at their workplaces following the public revelations suggests that the repercussions of their actions are already unfolding. In navigating this situation, the priority remains clear: to seek justice for the wrongs committed, free of any guilt, understanding that the responsibility for these circumstances lies entirely with them. The backlash I received after sharing those videos, highlighting how my actions supposedly jeopardized their careers, was an eye-opening experience. The level of gaslighting and melodrama in their calls and emails was astonishing. Fortunately, I remained steadfast, not allowing their manipulative tactics to sway me, which would have been a disservice to myself. It's almost laughable how they attempted to draw parallels between our actions, as if my decision to share the truth was somehow equivalent or even worse than their campaign of lies against me. Their efforts to tarnish my reputation were met with my straightforward response, showcasing their true behavior to the world. I'm seriously considering keeping those videos public post-mediation as a testament to their actions, ensuring their true characters are revealed for all to see. Post-mediation. Recently, the court appointed a mediator for our case, and following this development, my parents reached out, temporarily unblocking them. This facilitated this necessary dialogue during which they inquired about the withdrawal of the lawsuit under the impression that the situation was spiraling. I firmly informed them that I had no intention of backing down, which led to an explosive reaction. The call was a cacophony of anger and frustration, making it difficult to discern their exact words amid the chaos. When they called again, my father directly expressed his irritation, dismissing my actions as futile attempts at intimidation. I seized the moment to confront them with the full extent of my grievances, sparing no detail. It was a cathartic exchange, allowing me to vocalize years of pent-up feelings. Following this vehement declaration, I ended the call, refusing them the opportunity for rebuttal. Despite this closure, they persisted in their attempts to reach me, illustrating the depth of our unresolved tensions. This ongoing conflict, while challenging, has been a crucial step in asserting my autonomy and addressing the injustices of my upbringing. My parents reached out to my aunt, spinning a tale that I was taking legal action against them for baseless reasons, in a clear attempt to manipulate her empathy to their advantage. They hoped she could convince me to halt the lawsuit. However, my aunt is no longer easily swayed by their tactics. Their past manipulations, especially involving family court, have lost their effect on her. True to form, she echoed my stance back to them, offering her sympathy but firmly stating she would not intervene in their favor. She even went a step further, warning that any further harassment would not only cost them her sympathy, but could lead to her reporting their incessant bothering to the authorities. Her stance was a significant show of support for me. For a while there was silence from their end, a brief respite until later that day. After failing to sway my aunt, my parents widened their net, reaching out to every family member they could, painting me as the aggressor in a legal battle they claimed was unfounded. Soon, my phone was flooded with messages echoing the same sentiment. The lack of originality in their approach was almost comical. It was apparent they had distributed a standard message for relatives to forward to me, hoping to overwhelm me into reconsideration. The identical wording in most messages only highlighted their desperate strategy, making it blatantly obvious that this was a coordinated effort by my parents to sway my decision through familial pressure. This clumsy attempt at manipulation did little more than affirm my resolve, making it clear they were willing to use any means, however transparent, to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. It's quite disheartening to witness the lengths my parents are going to in an attempt to rectify the situation now that they realize the gravity of their predicament. The legal proceedings have officially started, and we're currently on a break. I've just had lunch, and I'm taking this moment to share an update. Lunch break. Throughout this process, my parents have exhibited a level of hostility that's hard to ignore, yet it's evident they're on the losing side of this battle. They're facing a reality where they might need to concede to our demands to avoid further legal complications. During the lunch break, the tension was palpable. My father's looks could kill, directed sharply at me, while my mother played the part of the distressed spouse, attempting to garner sympathy, a performance that failed to resonate with anyone present. Their actions couldn't disguise the truth. It was all for show. I cannot overstate the support I've received from my friends and business partners. Their solidarity has been a constant source of strength throughout these trying times. Just recently, one of my closest friends reassured me of his support, offering a listening ear for whatever I might need to unload emotionally. This gesture was a poignant reminder of the incredible support system I have in place. Despite the challenges presented by my family situation, I find myself profoundly thankful for the genuine connections I've cultivated outside of that dynamic. The love and support from my friends and my aunt have been invaluable, helping me navigate through this tumultuous period. Their presence in my life is a testament to the fact that family isn't just about blood relations. It's also about the people who stand by you when you need them the most. For this, I am truly grateful. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. I'm so jealous of my sister's marriage that it sickens me. I even snooped on her husband, looking for evidence he's actually crap. I'm ashamed. My sister and her husband always seem to have a good marriage. They've been together for around a decade, but you never really know, right? And to be honest, I thought they were just pretending, since I've never had a relationship that was super good in private. Well, now I do know. I've been living with them for 3 months. They took me in when my ex cheated on me. They do nice things for each other all the time, and it's like they don't even think about it. It's just natural. They're always bringing each other little presents. My ex called me shallow when I wanted him to give me even a cheap present for my birthday. Their eyes light up when they look at each other. My ex looked at me like I was a potato. They hug each other as though they haven't seen each other in months whenever one of them gets home. My ex ignored me when I got home / wanted me to leave him the duck alone to effing relax whenever he got home. They encourage each other's hobbies and outside friendships. My ex hated my friends and thought my hobbies were stupid. Worse yet, I can tell they're holding back when it comes to being affectionate around me. I arrived home early from an event one day and saw her sitting in his lap while they watched TV and he played with her hair. The stuff I see is apparently just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how much they like each other. They've even been through some of the tough stuff. Deaths, a miscarriage, job losses that can tear couples apart, but they made it through just fine. I guess I honestly didn't think relationships like this were real. I thought it was Hallmark Bowl and that all relationships are miserable hard work once you get past the honeymoon stage. I couldn't believe it, so I snooped on her husband, Max. It turns out his private communications are fine. He had conversations with female friends, but they were only platonic, and he even talked about how much he loves my sister, Sandra. Anyway, I felt extremely guilty about snooping that I confessed. They forgave me. My sister took me out for the day without Max and told me she'd been in bad relationships before Max, which I already knew, and that she thinks they helped her learn how to spot red flags so that she'd be available when the right person for her finally came along. She's also gone to therapy for a long time, and she says it helped her learn how to make healthy relationship choices / be a good partner. Max and Sandra offered to pay for me to get therapy. My insurance isn't great, so that's nice. I just want to find something like what they have. There's a silver lining though, I guess. Now that I know this kind of relationship isn't a childish fantasy, I don't think I'll ever be able to put up with somebody like my ex again. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I think my dad is in love with me. I am a 17-year-old girl. I live with my mom and dad, and my home life is terrible. My dad is abusive in all the ways you can think of and has all the traits of a narcissist. I hate him so much. My mom, on the other hand, I love her, but she's weak and has no backbone. I asked her once why she never left him and begged her to leave him, but she said that she wanted her kids to grow up in a 2-parent household because her parents divorced when she was a kid, and she hated them for it. Her relationship with them is now rocky, but my Nana and Papa are the best of friends and are happy in their own marriages. I just wish she took a page out of their book. My relationship with my dad is terrible. I never speak to him unless necessary. He took my door off my room a long time ago because I locked it when I was getting dressed. My mom convinced him to give it back. But he got a key, so I don't even see the point of having a door because he still can barge in. He expects me, my mom, and my siblings to treat him like he's God. And more stuff that I don't want to include. A couple of months ago, my mom asked me and my siblings what we wanted to do after graduation since my birthday is a week after graduation. I decided to do this program that one of the donors from the college I'm attending has sponsored. They were sponsoring 5 students to study abroad in a country of their choice for 5 months, completely funded by them. Then afterwards, I'm starting college that's states away from home. After that, my dad started acting weird towards me, like his behavior and whatnot. He would start complimenting me more, commenting on my body or my clothes, the way he would stare at me like he was touching me with his eyes, touch me more often, and would lash out on me whenever I even brought up a boy. I told my mom and brother about it, and they all thought that it was just in my head. Graduation is literally in 2 days, and I honestly don't feel safe. The night of graduation, I'm going to stay at a friend's house. I already have clothes over there that would last me a while. I'm honestly just hoping my dad won't call the cops and force me home since I'm not of age yet. I think my dad is in love with me, so I guess it's time for the long-awaited and much-needed update. But before I just like to address something. I saw my post on TikTok like an hour ago, and I just wanted to thank the people in the comments for their advice. And also, I saw where some people asked if my dad was a conservative Christian, and no, he is not. My dad is not a political person at all. He actually hates politics and doesn't vote, and he doesn't believe in God. He says why should he believe and worship something that doesn't exist? But back to the update, so since the day I made my post was 2 days before graduation, I basically just kept my head down and didn't really do much of anything so that I wouldn't seem suspicious. But the night of graduation, I did go to my friend's house and took someone's advice and told my friends and her parents what was going on. They were understanding and sympathetic and said that I could stay as long as I needed to. My dad called me that night and asked me where I was. I told him I was at a friend's house. He doesn't know any of my friends. He said that was fine, but to ask next time and to come home by tomorrow morning, which is today. So early this morning, I was expected home, but I obviously didn't go, so my dad was blowing up my phone. I turned it off thinking that I was safe, but my dad had my location somehow, and he showed up to my friend's house. He argued with my friend's parents and tried to get me to come home, but they wouldn't let him in until he threatened to call the police and report them for kidnapping. And I don't blame them, but they made me go home with him. He dragged me out of their house, and I begged and pleaded with him to let me go. But he just threw me inside his car. I tried to get out, that he put the car on child lock on the way home. I begged him to let me out, but he just argued with me the entire time. When we made it to the house, he dragged me inside and into my room, then locked me in, and I started to have a panic attack, which I have a history of. After hours of me trying to calm myself down, I called my Nana. She lived an hour away. I told her everything that was going on and what I've been through. Literally 30 minutes later, she showed up to my house. I heard her downstairs because my vent in the downstairs vent connect, arguing with my dad. I don't remember everything that was said, but my Nana came upstairs and told me to pack a bag. I packed a bag, then went downstairs. My dad tried to stop us, saying that I couldn't leave because I'm a minor, and she couldn't take me without his permission. My Nana looked at my mom and asked her if I could go, and I never saw my mom look so scared before, but she hesitantly said yes, which made my dad so mad. He punched my mom to the floor, pushed my Nana on the ground, and pinned me to the wall by choking me. He called a lot of things he would call your child that you raised and supposedly loved. He finally let me go when my twin brother came downstairs and said he was going to call the cops. He broke a couple of things, then left. Then my mom screamed at me, telling me that I was ruining her life and that she hated me, but I just ignored her. While my dad was gone, I took that as an opportunity to get all of my important documents while my mom still screamed at me. My Nana tried to convince her to come home with us, but she wouldn't. My twin brother did come with us though. We tried to get my 2 younger siblings, but she wouldn't let them leave. So now I'm writing this at my Nana's house again. I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. It's nice to see that total strangers supported me more than my own mom. I honestly didn't want to do an update because it sounded so fake, Like as I was writing this, I was thinking everyone was going to think I was a troll or something. But nope, this is my messed up life. I hope this is the end of everything, but if not, I will update on that too, I promise. Also, another thing I saw on a TikTok comment where someone mentioned my story sounded like the movie, The Girl in the Basement. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna watch it tonight and give an update on that too. Update. Hi guys, it's been a while since my last update, and I just thought that I should end this whole thing with a happy ending. To start, my mom and dad are both in jail. They were going somewhere with my younger siblings and were arguing, then got into a car accident. So now they are in jail for child endangerment, and my two younger siblings now live with my nana. And I am officially out of the country and have started my journey abroad. I decided to go to Korea since that is where my nana is originally from, and I have just been having the best time and even made a few friends. I just want to thank everyone for their support and kind words. You guys have been more supportive of me than my own parents. It's crazy. Another thing, I will be changing my number just in case my parents try to get in contact with me. But other than that, everything is amazing. I'm starting a new chapter in my life, which is why after this update, I'm deleting Reddit and all social media platforms for a while. I just want to focus on my mental health for right now. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Now on to the next story. Story 4. So, I'm a 28-year-old woman, and not too long ago, I got a new job position that pays me more money than before. I was really happy about this and thought it would be a great idea to treat my mom, who is 51 years old, to a vacation in Greece as a way of saying thank you. Growing up, it was just me and my mom for the most part because my dad died from a very serious sickness when I was very young, around 2 or 3 years old. I don't really remember him much. My mom has been the one who looked after me all these years. She was a single mom, which means she didn't have a husband to help her with me, and that must have been really hard for her. But she never made me feel like I was too much trouble for her. My grandparents did help out a bit too, but it was mostly my mom. I'm really thankful for everything she did. She was like my best friend since I didn't have a dad around. So, when I got this promotion and the pay raise that came with it, the first thing I thought was to do something nice for my mom to show her how much I appreciate her. I could have invited my friends to come on the trip, but I chose to ask my mom instead because she means so much to me. However, when I asked her about the trip, she said she would love to go, but she wanted to bring her new husband and my step-siblings along. A bit of background. My mom got married to her current husband, who was 48, 3 years ago. They had been dating for 2 years before that, but she hadn't told me or anyone else in our family about him until they were engaged. It was a surprise to all of us, and they got married pretty quickly after that. I've never really gotten along with my stepdad or felt comfortable around him and his kids, who were in their teenage years. The oldest is a 16-year-old girl, and the younger one is a 14-year-old boy. I'm not sure why his first marriage ended, but my mom seems to think it was because his ex-wife was not a nice person and didn't treat them well, which is why she doesn't have custody of the kids. My stepdad had been divorced for about 2 years before he met my mom. They all seem happy together, so I didn't want to make a big deal about my mom wanting them to come on the trip with us. It's going to be more expensive and a bit of a hassle to organize everything for 4 people instead of just 2. And I might not get to spend as much one-on-one time with my mom as I had hoped, but I'm okay with that because the main goal of this trip is to make my mom happy and to thank her for all the sacrifices she made for me while I was growing up. So, a few days after my mom asked if her family could come with us to Greece, I said yes. I was okay with this because my new job pays me well enough that I can spend a bit extra without worrying too much. It took us almost 2 weeks to figure out all the details, but we finally booked our plane tickets. We arrived in Athens yesterday afternoon. Since we were all feeling really tired from the long flight, we decided to take a nap to try to get over the jet lag. I found it a bit strange that my mom's kids, my step-siblings, chose to sleep in my hotel room instead of with my mom and stepdad in the room next to us. I thought my mom would stay with her kids, but I didn't say anything. I figured maybe it was just easier this way for now and that they'd move to their own room after waking up from the nap, but even after everyone woke up, they stayed in my room. I didn't really mind, and we all went out to explore the area a bit. When we got back to the hotel later, the kids went straight to my room again. That's when I decided it was time to talk to my mom and stepdad about the sleeping arrangements. I found a moment to talk to my stepdad in the hotel lobby and suggested that it might be time for the kids to sleep in their own room. To my surprise, my stepdad just laughed and made a joke out of it. He said if I wanted to give my mom a real vacation, I should have thought about including babysitting services too. He seemed to find this very funny, but I didn't get the joke at first. Then, he explained that by organizing this trip for my mom to have a break from her usual busy life, it also meant I should take care of the kids so she could relax completely. They both smiled, thanked me, and left me standing there not knowing what to say. I thought I was already doing a lot by planning and paying for this trip, especially since it wasn't common for kids to treat their parents like this. I was trying to be patient with her new family, even though I originally wanted the trip to be just for me and my mom. And besides, I was the one covering all the costs, so the idea that they expected me to look after the kids too seemed really unfair to me. If my mom really needed a break, I thought she should have just left the kids at home and come with me like I had planned. After thinking it over for a bit, I decided to try talking to them one more time to see if I could make them understand. But then when I tried to talk about it again, my stepdad wasn't nice at all this time. He told me very directly that I had to share my room with the kids because, in his eyes, they deserved a break just as much. And before I could even respond, he closed the door in my face, leaving me standing there shocked. What made it worse was that my mom didn't say anything to defend me, even though my stepdad was being really mean and disrespectful to me. I couldn't believe he thought the kids deserved this vacation when it was actually me who had worked hard to earn the promotion and the pay raise that made this trip possible. Instead of being thankful for what I had done, they were treating me really badly. I was so upset. When I went back to my room and saw the kids lying on the bed next to mine, I decided to try something different and asked the kids nicely if they would consider moving to the other room, hoping they would agree. But they said no. They told me their parents had said they should stay in the same room as me, and so they thought it was okay to share my room. I didn't get mad at them because it wasn't their fault their dad was acting this way. I just left them alone and spent the next few hours thinking about what I should do. Then, around 10 o'clock at night, I noticed the kids were asleep. I spent a long time thinking and finally decided that the best thing for me to do was to leave without telling anyone. They had been really rude and selfish, and I didn't want to be pushed around on my own vacation that I was paying for. So, without a second thought, I quickly packed my bags. Luckily, I hadn't unpacked much, so it was easy. I didn't worry about the hotel staff. I just told them I was checking out and that my mom and stepdad would take care of the bill. It was after midnight, but I managed to find another hotel not too far from where we were staying. Finding a ride quickly, I was able to move to a new hotel within just 30 minutes. This new place was even nicer than the last one. Now that I wasn't with my mom and her family anymore, I decided to treat myself with the extra money I had. I slept really well that night, and the very first thing I did the next morning was book a relaxing full-body massage at the hotel spa. I wanted to make sure I enjoyed my vacation to the fullest, especially after working so hard to earn my promotion. I'd already stopped following my stepdad and mom on social media the night before, so I wasn't worried about them trying to contact me. Plus, they had no way of knowing where I was staying now. Up until lunchtime, I was having a great time, but then my mom managed to reach me. She created a new Instagram account just to send me a message. In her message, she told me I was being unfair to them, especially to her. She said that leaving them suddenly in a foreign country wasn't the right thing to do. She thought I should have talked to them in the morning like a family to work things out in a way that everyone would be okay with, but instead, I had left them without saying anything at a time when they had no access to money. Their bank cards weren't working in Greece, and the hotel staff was starting to ask them for payment since they were talking about checking out after finding out I had left. So, basically, they were stuck without any way to pay for their hotel rooms. Before I left, I had made sure the hotel knew the rooms were now under their names, not mine, so I wouldn't be blamed for any problems that came up, which I was sure there would be. My mom said she was really disappointed in me. She couldn't believe I would act so childishly and irresponsibly. She demanded that I come back immediately to fix the situation and help them out. When my mom messaged me complaining about the situation and demanding I come back to help, I was really upset. It felt like she thought she deserved my help no matter what, which made me even angrier. So, in a moment of frustration, I replied to her. I told her that she was grown up enough to handle her own problems and that she should ask her husband for help since she seems to depend on him for everything these days. My words made her really mad. After reading my message, she said she regretted even saying yes to the trip with me. She accused me of being jealous of her new life and her new family, saying that was the reason I was causing trouble for them. I don't think I did anything wrong. Anyone else in my shoes would probably feel and react the same way. It's not about jealousy. I'm just sad to see that she seems to care more about her new family than about me, her own child. But I guess that's something I have to accept now that I'm grown up. What I can't accept though is being treated badly by them, especially when they're relying on me for the vacation. And it really hurts that my mom didn't defend me when her husband was being so disrespectful. So, leaving them behind in another country wasn't about being mean. It was about standing up for myself after my stepdad insisted I share my hotel room with my step-siblings on a trip that I was paying for. It just didn't seem fair to me. Update 1. Hey everyone. I wanted to share an update and some thoughts after considering all the advice and comments you guys have given me. I made the decision not to apologize to my mom, and I haven't reached out to her since reading your insights. Reflecting on everything, I've come to realize that my understanding of my mom wasn't as deep as I believed. The fact that I even proposed the idea of taking her on a vacation was, in my mind, a generous gesture that should have been met with gratitude on her part. However, the situation escalated beyond what I deemed reasonable. Not only did she insist on including her family in our plans, but she also expected me to sacrifice my own comfort and privacy for her stepchildren. It baffles me why she would anticipate that I'd be okay with sitting down and resolving issues like a family, especially considering they really aren't my immediate family. Her husband is not my father, and her stepchildren are not my siblings. Thus, plus, I don't see it as my responsibility to engage in family-style discussions with them. The reason I ultimately chose to leave them behind was their overwhelming lack of respect towards me, despite my efforts in organizing this vacation for everyone. A basic level of appreciation and respect from their side would have been the least I expected, yet they failed to provide even that. From my perspective, there's nothing wrong with my actions. If I were to pinpoint where I might have erred, it would be in allowing my mother to persuade me into agreeing to her family's inclusion in the vacation. They aren't my family, and I shouldn't have to compromise my enjoyment or comfort for them. I thought I owed it to my mother, which is why I ended up in this predicament. She has been a supportive and caring mother throughout my life, but that doesn't entitle her to make demands or have expectations of me now. That's simply how I see the situation. It's been a full day since I stopped responding to her attempts to communicate. She continues to send messages sporadically, but I haven't given them any attention. I haven't gone as far as blocking her yet because I know that wouldn't stop her. She would likely just create another account to reach out. So, I've chosen to let her messages go unread by muting her, ensuring that it doesn't affect my peace of mind. Currently, I'm focusing on enjoying my trip on my own terms. This solo trip has turned into an unexpected journey of self-discovery and reflection. Without the constant noise and demands of trying to accommodate everyone else, I've been able to focus on what I truly want out of this experience. Exploring new places, indulging in the local culture, and taking the time to relax and unwind has been incredibly liberating. It's a reminder that sometimes stepping away from complicated situations can lead to a much-needed perspective shift and personal growth. While the circumstances leading up to this solo adventure were less than ideal, I'm now embracing the opportunity to make the most out of my travels, learning more about myself and the world around me in the process. Update 2. So, out of nowhere, my mom shows up at the hotel I'm staying at with her family, and she causes a big scene in the lobby because the hotel staff wouldn't let her come up to see me or even tell her which room I was in, which is totally normal for hotels to do for privacy and safety. I'm not sure why she was shocked by that anyway. I decided to go down and see what all the fuss was about, and the moment I got there, my mom was really angry. She pulled me to one side and started yelling at me for leaving them behind. They had somehow managed to leave the other hotel by sorting things out with their bank and settling their bill, but now they wanted me to explain why I had left them in the first place. I didn't think I needed to give them any reason. Despite that, I ended up telling them exactly why I left, and I could see my stepdad getting more and more upset as I spoke. By the time I finished, he looked like he was about to explode with anger, but honestly, I didn't care. It was his behavior that led to all this mess. If he had just been kind and respectful, I wouldn't have felt the need to leave. So, him being mad at me was just ridiculous. He shouldn't expect me to feel guilty. Then, my mom decided it was a good time to lecture me about family values and morals, saying what I did was totally wrong. She thought my actions were humiliating for them and called me a coward for not facing my family. This really made me angry, especially when she started talking about family again. I couldn't help but remind her that we weren't really a family. She had kept her new family a secret from us for so long, only telling us about them when she was about to marry. Plus, she and her husband never really tried to make me feel like part of their family, so it was pretty bold of them to expect me to treat them like we were close. I told her straight up that I was done. I didn't want to see her or her family for the rest of my trip, and they should leave me alone. She even had the nerve to ask me to book their flights back home, but I refused. I had already done enough by organizing the vacation. If they couldn't appreciate that, then it wasn't my problem. They're adults with their own money. I'm not going to bend over backward for them if they don't value what I've done. After some more arguing, my stepdad finally stepped in and took them away, giving me dirty looks the whole time, but I didn't care about his looks. A few hours have passed since that drama, and now I'm heading out to dinner with a friend who lives here and got in touch after hearing I was in town. I'm just hoping my mom and her family will head back home and let me enjoy the rest of my trip in peace. I'm really not interested in dragging out this fight any longer. Update 3. So, it looks like I was too optimistic about my mom just moving past our disagreement and leaving me to enjoy my vacation in peace. A couple of days ago, we had a really big fight, and I basically told her that I didn't owe her anything. I thought that was the end of it, and she would finally leave me alone, but that wasn't the case. Today, just when I was getting ready to explore the city by myself, the hotel's front desk called me. They said my mom was here again, wanting to see me. I decided to go down and meet her, hoping we could put an end to our argument so I could get back to enjoying my trip. I wasn't sure what to expect when I went to meet her in the lobby, but she looked more sad than mad. That gave me a little hope that maybe this time our conversation wouldn't be as bad as the last one. She started by saying she was sorry for losing her temper the other day and acting like she deserved everything. She didn't even realize she was being that way. She said she explained that she and her husband were really looking forward to a break. They've been stressed out with managing the house, taking care of the kids, and handling their finances. Things have been really tense at home. Before I invited her on this vacation, she thought this trip could be a chance for all of us to get closer and strengthen our relationships because she loves us all a lot and wants us to be a part of each other's lives. But now she wasn't sure if that was the right idea, especially since it's clear that her husband and I don't get along. After they left the hotel the last time, she and her husband had a huge argument about the whole situation. He even went as far as to say she had done a terrible job raising me. He compared her to his ex-wife, which was a low blow considering he used to complain that his ex would leave the kids alone for hours while she went out. It turns out the reason my mom's husband divorced his ex-wife was because he eventually discovered she would leave their young kids locked in a room by themselves for several hours. It was pretty clear that leaving young kids alone like that wasn't safe or responsible. So, when he compared my mom to his ex-wife just because I decided to stand up for myself, it felt like he was crossing a huge line. I mean, I don't think anyone would be okay with being compared to someone who did something like that. But my mom, she says she loves him and seems to be okay with what he said. The reason she came to see me today was to let me know that they were all going back home tomorrow. She also apologized for how she had acted. She's been really stressed about her relationship with her husband, which had her on edge even before all this happened with me. My leaving just made everything worse for her. So, she was saying sorry for her part in our fight, but then she told me she wanted me to keep my distance for a while. This meant I shouldn't call her like I used to chat about everyday things. I wasn't planning on calling her during my vacation anyway, but hearing that I can't have the same kind of relationship with her as before really hurt. It's like because of her husband, everything between us has changed. Honestly, part of me wishes she hadn't even bothered to come and apologize. It just makes me feel worse about the whole situation. Sure, she made a mistake, but she's still my mom. She was the closest person to me growing up, and it feels like I'm losing a big part of my childhood because of her new family. It's a tough pill to swallow, but there's not much I can do about it. If she's choosing them over me, then that's her decision, I guess. All I can do now is try to make the best of the rest of my time here. I'm spending a lot of money to stay at this nice hotel, so I might as well enjoy it. That's where things stand now. Update 4. Hey there! So I got back from my trip 3 days ago, and I'm gearing up to go back to work tomorrow. I managed to have a pretty good time on my trip, trying to make the most of it and actually enjoying myself. I was doing a good job of not thinking about the whole ordeal with my mom until last night. That's when my grandparents told me something unexpected. My mom decided to leave her husband. Apparently, they were already having a tough time before all this happened, and they've come to realize that they just can't make their relationship work anymore. It's a bit weird and sad for me because during our conflict, it felt like she chose them over me, and now she doesn't even have them. Since the day she came to see me at the hotel and we didn't resolve anything, we haven't spoken. I didn't reach out to her, thinking it wouldn't make much difference, and I was busy trying to enjoy the rest of my vacation. Even after getting back home, she didn't cross my mind much. I figured if she hadn't made an effort to talk to me, maybe it was better not to push it. I didn't want to insert myself into a situation where I clearly wasn't welcome, especially since she made it obvious she wasn't ready to talk to me yet. And looking at how things are turning out, it doesn't seem like she's planning to reach out anytime soon. It's significant that she didn't even tell me about her decision to get a divorce. That's a pretty big deal. This might be where things end between my mom and me, and even if we somehow find a way to patch things up down the line, I know things can't go back to how they used to be. But I'm coming to terms with that. I did everything I could as her daughter until it felt like there was nothing more I could do without compromising my own well-being. I'm at peace with whatever happens next and genuinely hope she finds happiness. Holding on to anger or resentment, especially towards my own mom, isn't something I'm interested in. Life's too short for that. So, I guess it's time for me to start moving on from this whole thing. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My dog attacked my stalker. Now my SIL says my dog is too dangerous. I'm going crazy. This is kind of a complicated story, but I'll just get into it. I used to be in this controlling, kind of abusive relationship. When I finally broke it off a year ago, my ex started showing up places trying to get me to take him back. Eventually, it developed into full-on stalking. He would show up at my work and took to just waiting outside of it after he was banned. Leave notes on my car when I was at the grocery store door. Leave all kinds of flowers outside my house and then stick angry notes on my door after he saw me throw them in the trash. He wrote me all kinds of weird, obsessive emails and letters. I've had to change my phone number 3 times. The behavior escalated over time and got scarier, more threatening. In one instance, he started a small fire in my driveway, but the police couldn't get enough evidence connecting him to it. It was after that instance that I put cameras in my yard. I previously only had them pointing at my doors. I was horrified to learn that the police couldn't do anything about any of this until my stalker was actually caught doing something illegal, like breaking into my house, at which point I might already be dead. I decided I wasn't spending the rest of my life waiting for the other shoe to drop, so I got a handgun and a concealed carry permit, took some self-defense courses and started doing strength training. I also looked into getting an attack dog, but after all the money I'd sunk into my other methods of protection, they were prohibitively expensive. So I went to my local animal shelter and got the scariest, meanest-looking dog I could find. This is where Thor comes in. He's a 100 pounds American bulldog. Looks like he'd rip your throat out on sight, but is basically a gigantic teddy bear. He loves every person he's ever met, is incredibly sweet and gentle with my 4-year-old niece, enjoys other animals, and even loves the mailman. I just kind of accepted that he probably wouldn't do anything to protect me from my stalker, but it didn't matter that much because having such a huge dog made me so much more confident. I brought Thor everywhere I could and was working on getting him trained enough to be an emotional support animal so I could bring him inside places with me. I absolutely would not do this until he was trained well enough to not disrupt a regular service dog. Last month, I woke up in the middle of the night to Thor whining. I was groggy and thought he had to go to the bathroom, so I got out of bed and opened the door. At that point, my house alarm went off and pretty soon after that, I was face to face with my stalker. I started screaming and went to run for my gun. Before I could do anything though, Thor ran across the room in full attack mode. The memory is really blurry for me, but there was blood all over my living room, and I remember my stalker was eventually able to escape. At which point, Thor chased him outside and then came back to me. When the police showed up, they said Thor was a hero who'd probably saved my life. I don't want to list what they found in my stalker's car after they caught him, and I'm shaking a little as I type this, but I'm sure he was going to bring me somewhere and kill me. It looks like he's going to prison for a long time though, so my nightmare is over. Pretty much everyone in my life thinks Thor is a hero except my sister-in-law. She and my brother have a 4-year-old, and she says she doesn't want Thor around her anymore. She says since Thor has snapped in the past, he could do it again, so he's not safe to have around kids. We used to see each other a few times a week before she decided Thor was dangerous. The way she words this makes me furious because Thor didn't snap. He saw a stranger break into his home, heard his owner scream in terror, and reacted to defend me, himself, and his house. Nothing about that screams dangerous around children to me, unless my niece is also going to break into my house and threaten me. This is also a very emotional issue for me because Thor isn't just a dog to me. He's my safe place, my hero, the one who protected me and kept me safe when no one else could. I've also gotten increasingly anxious since this happened, and I can't go anywhere without Thor. I barely leave my house. I pay to pick up my groceries from the store instead of going in because I know Thor isn't allowed inside. And all my friends know that if Thor isn't welcome in their house, I'm not coming either. Although they're perfectly welcome to come hang out at my house instead. I am really going through it, and I am working with a therapist to overcome this. Luckily, my office is still fully remote, but I need to be able to go back to work once we're in person again. But I really need my brother and sister-in-law's support. I think my SIL thinks I'm just pouting, and that's why I won't just leave the dog home and come over without him. I don't know how to explain to them that the fear hasn't stopped just because my stalker is in jail. It's actually a lot worse than it was before. I've already suggested they come over and I crate Thor, but that wasn't good enough for her. What can I do to make her understand the situation better? Now on to the next story. Story 6. My boyfriend hit me in my pregnant stomach. We seem to have this recurring argument about him being jealous of my oldest son's father. Today, I received a call from my son's school about some trouble he got in with his classmate. I called his dad to inform him, which is something we always do in situations concerning our child. I always communicate matters with my son to his father and vice versa. We strictly discuss our son and nothing else whatsoever. There's never any inappropriate interaction between my son's dad and me, ever. When the phone call was over, we continued the conversation through text. This must have rubbed my boyfriend the wrong way because his body language appeared tense all of a sudden. I asked him what was wrong, and he responded that he didn't like the fact that some of my passwords are my son's name because he has the same name as his dad. I told him my passwords are just that, my child's name, not his dad's. He seemingly got over it and we moved on. Fast forward an hour later, he comes in the room and tells me he will text me later while he's at band practice and that he wants me to respond back as fast as I responded to my son's father earlier today. He never texts me while he's at band practice. He always calls after, or I'll just see him when he gets home. So I told him I'm not responding at all since he's comparing himself to my oldest son's dad again and only texting me just to see if I'll respond in a certain time. This gets him even more upset, and he begins raising his voice. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. I go to try and leave the room to avoid arguing, and he blocks me from leaving and tells me I'm not leaving. So I start yelling for him to move out of my way. My boyfriend is a huge guy, 6 feet 1 inch and 260 pounds, compared to my petite self, 5 feet 4 inches and 164 pounds. By this point, my 1-year-old is crying, and I'm trying to get to him. My boyfriend keeps pushing my hand every time I grab the doorknob and using his weight to keep the door from opening. So I hit him in his shoulder, not hard at all. He probably barely felt it, and he hit me back way harder and in my stomach. I'm currently 6 months pregnant. So I turned the other way and started to cry. Instead of apologizing, he starts to blame me, saying it was a reflex because I hit him first and he didn't mean to hit my stomach. He also said that he didn't even hit me that hard, which was false. He tries to grab me, and I lash out in anger, hitting, yelling, and kicking. When he finally let me leave the room, he follows me to the other room demanding we talk right now. I told him no, and he proceeds to pull and yank me off of the bed to get me to go with him until I yelled at him to leave me alone. Our 1-year-old is next to me while he's doing this, so he screams and cries for me to pick him up. I told my boyfriend he's scaring the baby, and he just keeps trying to take him from me so he can put him down and pull me out of the room. He eventually gave up and said I'm using our son as an excuse to avoid talking. I'm just at a loss for words right now. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.